Welcome to my spoiler-free review of Spider-Man No Way Home, directed by Jon Watts, and is the third film in the MCU to feature Spider-Man as the lead. And this is going to be a spoiler-free review. Let me reiterate that one more time. So nothing of any significant detail is going to be given away. I want you guys to see this film as spoiler-free as possible. So without further ado, here we go. I'm going to give plot details specific to the trailers that you've seen. Essentially, after the end of Far From Home, Peter Parker's identity has been revealed to the world, and now he's having to deal with the fallout of it. But it's affecting a lot of people in his life, and he wants that to stop. And so he goes over to Doctor Strange to try and make that happen. Obviously, things go horribly wrong, and suddenly a multiverse of sorts has been unleashed, and villains from every other universe have started to appear. Villains that we may have known from other movies. No Way Home marks the third time they've tried to do a multiple villain story. The first two attempts, Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2, didn't work out super well, and so when I was going into this movie, I was excited because, for one, I loved Homecoming and Far From Home. I thought they were fantastic films. But then I was also going into this one slightly worried because, again, multiple villains, you want to make sure that that goes well, and hopefully third time's the charm. So I walked into the theater, which is the most packed theater I've been to in 2 years. I would say Rise of Skywalker was the last time I went to a show like this. I'm really impressed with No Way Home. I thought this was an absolute blast, and it's actually one of my favorite Spider-Man movies now. It might actually be my number one favorite now. And I know the obvious thought, a lot of people will think, oh, I'm already a Spider-Man fan, of course I was going to like this thing no matter what. But really, I think why this movie works is because it understands the character properly. Something that a lot of people have criticized the other two Spider-Man movies for in the MCU was its over-reliance on what had happened before for Peter Parker to grow as a character, in particular, his connection to Tony Stark. And so when, this movie came around, a lot of people are worried that it's again going to be something of a film where he doesn't get his own time to shine, and he doesn't become his own character, his own human being. And so I was very impressed by the fact that it actually manages to handle that really well. This is the most Peter Parker-centric Spider-Man movie of the three. It's also the one that really matures his character in ways that are different, and they make sense for his character. He's growing into something very different now. And the film understands this progression really, really well. And I think Tom Holland gives the best performance he's ever given as this character to date. He is outstanding in this film. And there are specific moments with him in particular where it's a big moment for him. And the film understands exactly how to play those. I was actually quite surprised by that. The film is a very heartfelt, poignant movie. It's something that really understands all the characters, and it explores all the dynamics in the best ways possible. In particular, all the villains who are coming in. It's fan service, sure, you can look at it that way, and yes, there are people, if you are somebody who doesn't like fan service, you're probably gonna be very upset with certain things in this movie. But I must be honest with you, this was fan service that made sense. It's not like these characters just showed up and you thought, oh yeah, that's that guy from that movie, and that's cool. It actually has a sense of purpose to it. So when certain things are happening in the film and when you're interacting with some of them, they're exploring certain avenues that may have been missed out on before, and it explores them in some very interesting ways. In some cases, actually, there were characters that I thought were not as fully fleshed out as they could have been in previous iterations, let's just put it that way. And they're given a little more here. There is a depth in particular to one of the characters that I was surprised by. There's a whole layer that opens up for them. And I do credit the writing for that. Even though the film has to juggle a lot. There is so much happening in this movie. And frankly, I can't say anything. Because again, spoilers. But so much happens from the second it starts till the moment it ends that the film has to just somehow put 2 hours and 30 minutes, all of that has to happen in that time frame. And credit to Chris McKenna and Eric Summers, the writers, for actually pulling off a feat of, extraordinary feat at that. And somehow keeping it all together despite the fact that it was overloaded to hell. Like I said, this formula has been tried twice before with multiple villains, and this one has way more than you would expect them to. This also has the best action of the MCU Spidey so far. There are some scenes in particular with hand-to-hand combat, which I was really impressed by. There's one in particular which I feel like is just, it's like they must have used the fight choreographer from like Civil War or Winter Soldier or something. There's a fight scene which I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. And it's brutal. It's a much more brutal film compared to the other two. This one is less about teenage Peter Parker. He's now moving into adulthood, and so the hits are worse. He takes damage, which I was very happy about. And something that I felt like was an issue for the last couple of films. I felt like it was a little bloodless, and like you weren't really feeling like this is a Spider-Man who can take some serious hits. In this one, he is very much at his most vulnerable, and they really pulled it off wonderfully. I have a lot of things I could say about this film in terms of its praise. I think it's a wonderful looking film, definitely the best looking of the three Spider-Man movies. It's a very vibrant movie. There's some really great uses of suits in this one in particular. There's also some really great stuff they do with villains, and for the fact that this film was probably shot like 99% on like a green screen because of COVID, I have to say that it very rarely felt like you were looking at green screen moments. Like there's one shot I thought prominently, I was like, yeah, that's okay, that was CGI. But for the most part, I'm very impressed with the visual feats they pulled off. There's one scene that might visually be my favorite Spider-Man scene, like visually speaking, in any of the Spider-Man movies. Let's talk about the multiverse stuff as briefly as possible. It's very strange, it's very exciting, no pun intended on the strange over there, and there's definitely a lot of unique things they do with some of those sequences. I was quite impressed. There's one scene with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, which you've seen hints of in the trailers, that was quite something, and visually quite wonderful to behold. And yes, there was a lot of cheering in my theater. I actually missed audiences cheering over things and just having a blast. Like, I guess the last couple of years, ever since the pandemic, it's just been like, okay, when's the next time when you're gonna hear an audience just going absolutely crazy over certain scenes? And this film definitely has a lot of those. In fact, way more than I expected. And yeah, definitely come for that audience reaction. And it's funny because I'm actually processing the film as we speak even now. Maybe that's why I'm repeating certain things, because I know there's not a lot that I can say because I know everything's a spoiler. This might actually be one of the toughest reviews I've had to do in order to keep things as vague as possible. But all I'll say, and I'm heading into my wrap up here, that this film is outstanding. I loved it. I loved every second of it. It's not what I expected it to be. In some cases, it's better than I expected it to be. It's much more emotionally heavy and much more heartfelt than I was expecting it to be. And I thought that was a huge merit for the film. I think it's a wonderfully told story, one that understands the character really, really well and really brings certain things about Spider-Man as a whole home wonderfully. Trying to fit in a lot of puns into this review, and I can't wait to see it again. I feel like it's a film that's it's going to get better as I watch it. And like I said about that fan service, yeah, it's there, but it makes sense. Like, it's not there for, haha, remember that line? Like, yes, there are moments where a character will say something and you'll be like, okay, I got that. But it's like, you get that with the fan service part of it, but it's also done in a way that is very thoughtful and I thought was wonderfully handled, and I'm very, very impressed by it. And so I'm gonna give Spider-Man No Way Home a 10 out of 10. There's no bias in that rating. Like, it could easily have been a very biased review if I wanted it to be. It was just how I felt after watching it, and it was like, yeah, this is top marks. This just did everything that I wanted it to do, and I'm so excited for people to check it out. And I'm not gonna talk too much about leaving your thoughts in the comments below at the moment because, like I said, spoilers. I don't want anyone to give anything away. But If you did enjoy it, I guess you can tell me that. Like, did you like it or dislike it? Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. I will be doing a spoiler review of this movie because there's so much more to talk about. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.